me. Ooh, baby, make my body shake. Got the sun coming up and I'm wide awake. Tonight has been a long time coming. Now I can finally see that everybody puts their faith in something. Might as well be with me. I feel free, so free, so free.
I get my groove and swagger on, blasting out my favorite song. Let my freaky out, let it show. Let it show. Ain't nothing wrong with confident, loving me, I'm feeling it. Let the rhythm move and let go. Just let go. But some days I'm feeling so down and ain't feeling so pretty, yeah. But I go on loving myself, cause I don't need that pity, yeah. Cause I get high and low, yeah, dust it off and shake it off. High and low, yeah, dust it off and shake it off. Don't matter what they say, I'ma do my thing. I'ma do my thing. Just watch me. I'ma do my thing, yeah. I'ma do my thing, yeah. I'ma do my thing, yeah. Just watch me. I'ma do my thing, yeah. I'ma do my thing, yeah. I'ma do my thing, yeah. Check my nails, they looking fine. Throw my hair back, feeling prime. Look out, baby, I'm on a roll. I'm on a roll. Feel the beat is coming strong. Make me wanna clap along. Feeling good wherever I go. But some days I'm feeling so down and feeling so pretty, yeah. But I go on loving myself, cause I don't need that pity, yeah. Cause I get high and low, yeah, dust it off and shake it off. High and low, yeah, dust it off and shake it off. Don't matter what they say, I'ma do my thing. I'ma do my thing. Just watch me. I'ma do my thing, yeah. I'ma do my
For record-keeping purposes, if you wish to make a statement regarding any item on the agenda, please complete the form located at the entrance or at the rear of the council chambers and deposit it with the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Planning and Housing Commission meeting. Commissioner Sherman will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Chair Sequelin, excuse me, before we begin, in that stack that I gave you of speaker cards, I believe there is one in there for communications. Thank you.
Communications from the public. Persons wishing to address the Planning and Housing Commission are requested to state their name for the record. This portion of the agenda is intended for public comment. State law prohibits the Planning and Housing Commission from discussing or taking action on items not listed on the agenda. The Planning and Housing Commission will appreciate your cooperation in keeping your comments brief. Please observe a 3-minute limit to all communications. Ms. Capilla, welcome. Did we receive any speaker cards or written comments from the public for any items not on the agenda?
Chair, just the one you have in your hands.
I just have item 3 and the PMs. To clarify, I don't have a non-agenda card.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, before we move to our meeting minutes, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge one of our planning commissioners. Diane Meza has been a planning commissioner for the city of Corona since April of 2020, 3 years ago, and her commission ended actually this month. And the city and staff and the commission would like to thank Ms. Meza for her 3 years of service as a commissioner for the city. We wish you all the best in your continued endeavors, and thank you very much for all of your time and effort with us. With that, we have a city recognition to Ms. Diane Meza, and thank you very much. Anything you'd like to say? Put you on the spot. You save it for later? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, next item, meeting minutes. Approval of minutes for the Planning and Housing Commission meeting of March 6, 2023. Ms. Capilla, did we receive any speaker cards or comments from the public regarding March 6th minutes?
No, Chair Sikwalan, we did not.
Thank you. And do we have a motion for approval of those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the Planning and Housing Commission meeting minutes from March 20th, or I'm sorry, from March 6th,
March 6th,
2023.
yeah. And do we have a second?
I second that motion.
And if we'd please vote.
Commissioner Woody, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. And
How do you wish to vote?
since I was not at the meeting, I'll abstain from this one.
And I don't have a voting screen,
Nor do I.
so I vote aye to approve.
Thank you.
Aye.
And that item passes. Public hearings. Public hearings are items that have been publicly advertised for review and consideration by the Planning and Housing Commission. The first public item is for hearing CUP 2021-0004. It's a continued item. A conditional use permit application to allow a drive-through and walk-up window coffee shop, Starbucks, within an existing commercial center located at the southeast corner of Green River Road and Dominguez Ranch Road in the neighborhood commercial district of the Sierra de Oro specific plan. The applicant is Jessica Steiner of Bickle Group Architecture. This item, at the recommendation of staff, will be continued to our April 10th Planning and Housing Commission meeting. As such, do we have a motion from the commission to accept that recommendation to continue?
I move that we continue.
And do we have a second?
A second.
And Commissioner Sherman seconds. And if we'd please vote on that continuance. I vote aye to continue.
And
Commissioner
I will
Woody?
vote yes.
I also vote
I'll
aye.
vote yes.
Thank you, commissioners.
and the motion to continue passes. Our next public item is for PM 38314, a parcel map application to subdivide .56 acres into 2 lots for residential purposes located at 912 Beverly Road in the R2 zone. That's a low-density, multiple-family residential zone. The applicant is Jeff Miter for Valued Engineering Incorporated on behalf of Javier Villanueva. Sandra Yang, our senior planner, will present this item. Ms. Yang, welcome. I'd like to hear from you.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight's item is a request by the owner of a property located at 912 Beverly Road to split his property into 2 lots. The property is located in an established neighborhood, as you can see here in this exhibit. The property is .56 acres, and it is zoned R2. This is a low-density, multiple-family zone, which permits the construction of a single-family dwelling, a duplex, 2-family dwelling, a triplex, or multiple family. The property does contain an existing residence, which currently sits on the eastern portion of the lot. The western portion is unused excess land, and this is the area which the owner would like to split off into a separate lot for future development. This is the parcel map that is being proposed by the applicant. The lot that is identified as parcel 1, which is located at the top of your screen there, that is the eastern portion of the property. It contains an existing house, a detached garage, and an accessory structure in the back. The western portion is identified as parcel 2. Parcel 1 is 11,643 square feet, and parcel 2 is 11,587 square feet. Both lots do meet the minimum lot area, width, and depth requirements that are required under the R2 zone. The lots both front Beverly Road. Parcel 1 currently takes access off of Beverly Road, and parcel 2 will be required to take access off of the same road. As proposed, the subdivision results in a density of 3.5 dwelling units per acre. This complies with the property's general plan designation of low-density residential. The Planning and Development Department is recommending that the Planning and Housing Commission find the project exempt from CEQA, and that the Planning and Housing Commission recommend approval of this map to the City Council based on the findings that are contained in your staff report and in the conditions of approval for this project. Thank you.
Ms. Yang, thank you for your update on that item. Before we move to public hearing, let's start with any commissioners with questions of staff.
Looking at the site plan, is that a alley access way behind the residences? It looks like a dirt area or some sort of driveway.
It's not. It's a channel that's behind the property.
Question, do we have the applicant here tonight as well?
Yes, we do. We have the civil engineer who represents the applicant, and we also have the owner as well.
Great, so we can bring them in under public comment. Mr. Woody, do you have any questions for staff on this item?
No, not at this time.
Okay, with no questions of staff, we'll now open the public hearing. We'll be opening the public hearing, and Ms. Capilla, I have several speaker cards. Any additional cards on the item?
No, Chair. No others.
All right. So I have, I don't know, looks like about half a dozen cards. I'll just call the names in random order that I have. You're welcome to come up to this podium and speak on this item. So first item would be Mr. Joe Breyer.
my clock running yet? Oh, okay. Well, I'm not one who likes to beat a dead horse, but I was here last month for the last hearing. And usually when things are like, a bottle of wine, they get better with age. But this one, the more I think about it, the more I see it and hear about it, it's starting to stink to high heaven. And Fullerton Avenue in my neighborhood where I live off of Fullerton and Francis, which is next street over from Beverly, it's already a safety hazard. I mean, almost on a weekly basis, there's accidents, and the fire department and the ambulance squads are rushing them down that street anyway because of accidents and people driving way too fast. And then, they put apartments there on that, which I believe is an old abandoned farmhouse, which huge lot. I think there's like 4 or 5 acres there. And with the problem we talked about the last month, I believe it was, that, people up and down my street, there's cars parked everywhere. And off of Filbert and Circle City Drive, because those apartments there, those poor people who live on that street can't even park in front of their own house. And the people that live in those apartments can't even park in those apartments, they're parking out on Circle City Drive and Filbert. I guess they want to spread that over to our neighborhood, off of Francis between Fullerton and Rimpaw there. And ever since they opened up that Starbucks there on Rimpaw, where the Carl's Jr. used to be, traffic's 10 times worse than it was. And they want to put apartments there. To me, that's going to just make things worse than it already is. And I know this is because of the affordable housing edict signed by our illustrious governor, and I believe this is required in every county in California except for one, the county where he lives. I wonder how many of you in here tonight knew that. I just found out about it over the weekend on the news, and plus reading the Press Enterprise. And I'm not gonna pull any punches or wear kids' gloves on this, but people in our neighborhood and I are, for one, are not in favor of this nonsense. And there's people on my street that are renting out rooms. There's one guy across the street from me, he's got 6 cars parked in his driveway on his front lawn. Then plus there's cars parked out in the street in front of his place, and then it impacts our street and our houses. Then they put those apartments there on Beverly and Sycamore and Rimpaw, or Fullerton, I mean. It's gonna make a bad problem even worse. Like I say, needless to say, I'm not sure heck ain't in favor of this.
Mr. Jeff Miter? I just noticed you're representing the applicant. All right.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Miter of Valued Engineering. I am the civil engineer on the project and the land surveyor representing the owner this evening, and I'm here to answer questions.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't look at the card before I called you. I think what I'd like to do is complete the balance of the public comment cards that I have and any others that come in, and we'll have you come back up, and then we can further ask questions. I apologize for that. Miss Becky Henke. Good evening.
My concern is just like the gentleman before with all the traffic, but also with more building right there on Beverly. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I'm born and raised in Corona, live on the same street, and I see and nobody's gonna push me out, make me move somewhere else. I like my home, I like my neighborhood, and I don't need it to get any bigger. If they put apartments or duplex, is it gonna take away the value of my home if I ever decide to sell? Are they going to, or the city of Corona, give me a compensation, what I would have made on my home? I don't want I don't want my home to depreciate. I've been there. It's hard to explain. I know everybody wants progress. We're going to do this, do that. Well, Fullerton is busy. Beverly is busy because of the apartments down the street, and then you get more people. I just totally oppose it. I mean, put yourself in our position. If it was your neighborhood and it's packed, traffic, people packed in homes, renting out their garages, and it's just, I know, like on the picture, there's a front house, right? And then there's a garage. Well, there's also people living back there. I don't know if that's part of it. We pass by there, you see people way back there. So I don't know if that's permitted or what, but this is what's going on in our neighborhood. Okay? It just angers me. Sorry.
Thank you. Ms. Rena Munoz. Rena, apologize. See it now.
I am totally opposed of this because there's no parking in the first place. And we are all single family homes on Beverly Road. And I don't care what anybody wants to spend their money on, but in the front, have a single family home dwelling. Behind them, I don't care what they do to it, because that's another concern of mine. If and when I want to sell my home, I know what my home's worth right now. And if I can't sell it for what it is right now, who compensates me? Because I surely wouldn't buy in a neighborhood that has single-family homes, and then all of a sudden, here we are, big apartment buildings. Because it isn't my business what they want to do. I live on the R2 zone also. I live 3 houses from this project. And bottom line is there's no parking. And we're the last street that is straight on to go to Stater Brothers, go straight to the apartments that are down the street. I lived on Beverly Road all my life. My dad built our home, and when they retired, we bought the house from them. I'm still there since '58. So we watched it grow, and I love my neighbors. You know, I'm talking to them and giving them avocados and, I mean, even oranges and all this kind of stuff. But I love my neighbors. But when you have apartments coming in, they draw different kind of people. And we have a neighborhood of kids and stuff. And I just want to feel comfortable. And I'm not opposing the person and what he wants to do, but in the front, at least make it look like a home, and in the back, do whatever you want. So that's my opinion, and I'm not sorry for it, but it's my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Gloria Breyer.
I understand they want affordable housing for homeless. A lot of people homeless are mentally ill. So are they going to take care of those houses once they move into them? Is it going to be turned to a slum area? I've been in my house for 50 years. I own my house. I'm like them. I already live in a neighborhood where people have bought houses and they're making the houses apartments already. Maybe you guys can consider that. They're already apartments, but at least we can live with that. We're not talking about high rises where 6,000 people, 5,400 or whatever move in one area and all the vehicles. I live at 918 East Francis Street, 913, 926, 932, 938, 970, 976. They all are apartments on my block. They used to be, when I moved in, family dwellings. Sometimes I can't park in front of my house, or my family can't come and park in front of my house. I've asked neighbors to move their cars, and they just shun me. So it's my home. Do you want people to move in your neighborhood and take over? And you're talking about apartments. At the bottom of Rimpau, they've got apartments. That whole block on Rimpau is full of cars. You can't park on Francis Street, so where are they going to park if you built apartments there on Sycamore on the other side? They're going to impact Beverly. They're going to impact Francis Street. I already have, sometimes I can't get into my driveway. I just don't understand. There are apartments also right by the 7-Eleven. Everywhere there's apartments. They built apartments across the park, and that's nice. But the people who live behind those apartments, they're impacted on Filbert. The guy's putting up cones. He's putting up big containers to try to save space so he can park. We are already having an issue, and you're talking about building these apartments. And I'm with the lady. Is my house going to be worth money if I have all these apartments? And what is the impact after all these apartments come in? What kind of people are going to move in there? Are they going to be nice and rude? They're going to have more cars? I said before, there's a lady that lives on Ford Street. We also have the school. We have Stallings. We have where they put the coffee thing. And we have Centennial. Those two streets, Rimpau and Fullerton, get lots and lots of traffic already. It's heartbreaking that what you guys are doing. This is very hard. I don't understand why I can't keep my house, and I'm already impacted by things, and then you guys are wanting to build more apartments, and it's just going to be horrible. I think that's it. The apartments on 6th Street, those people are impacted on Filbert and Circle City. And I don't know. We were here last week, and what I was saying was on Francis, when the kids they're picking up their kids, and it's so bad. There was a lady who couldn't get the ambulance in there when her husband was having a heart attack. A lot of us are elderly. If I get sick, is that ambulance going to be able to get to my house because there's so much traffic and there's so many cars?
Thank you. Mr. Joe Morgan?
Good afternoon. Joe Morgan, 2063 Rand. So I live pretty close. I'm in this area, but I'm through this area all the time. Maybe I'm confused. I don't really see an apartment building on this application. The application, as I see, is to make a big square lot into 2 rectangular lots, and the 2 rectangular lots look exactly like all the other lots in that neighborhood. It seems to me that if it wasn't divided, then you might have room for an apartment complex. But if it's divided up, they can only have so many buildings on there. So if it's 2 smaller lots, then it's likely to have less dwellings on it than it would be if it was left together. The other thing I would note is that this commission was definitely aware of the problems of doing a high density kind of overlay or changing the zone in this particular area and asked for it to be pulled from the housing element changes. So I have, it looks to me like this is just being a lot split to make them match the rest of the neighborhoods. I don't really understand where the talk of the apartments are. If there was to be a proposal to bring an apartment on this parcel, that's to change it from R2 to R3 would be a whole other public hearing. It seems like it would be here tonight, or there would be another notice, and that would certainly be something I could see you guys not necessarily being in favor of, or, because it wouldn't fit the neighborhood. But, as long as they're building something within the zone, I really don't see the issue. They're not asking for a zone change. They're just asking to have their lot look exactly like all the rest of the lots in the neighborhood. So, as near as I can tell, if there's some more to it than that, I'd be interested to hear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a Maribel Pozos.
I live right across the street from where this is gonna happen, and I wasn't aware of apartments happening there, but I'm hoping there's not, because I feel like when there's apartments, there's more vandalism, and I feel safe in my home now, and I would hate to live across the street from where I don't feel safe anymore. Also, our street is very small. It's very small, so sometimes even just coming in and out of the street to go to Fullerton, gets hard when there's cars parked on both sides. Sometimes, because the street is so small, cars have to move to the side where there's no cars parked, when there is no cars parked, to be able to get through. So making this area an apartment complex or anything like that would just be really bad for our place. And like my neighbor said, I like where I live, and I would hate to have to move out, out of the area because they're making, the vocabulary of multifamily residential area, I don't know exactly what that means, but if it means there's apartments coming in there, I would definitely want to know, because I wouldn't want to live in an area where, this is why I moved here, because I want to be in a neighborhood, in a safe neighborhood. And when there's apartments, I feel like people from outside come, and my neighbor said, we don't know who these people are. And we like our neighbors. We like, to be courteous and give out oranges and lemons and avocados. And but yeah, that is my only concern. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've worked through our speaker cards, and if we would have Mr. Jeff Miter come back up. Yeah, I think to start off with, if you could bring some clarity around the conversation that we've just heard. This is not an application for anything other than a parcel map change.
That is correct.
It is not to bring a rezoning or to change density of the location, as one of our public comment speakers spoke of. So maybe you could just provide a bit more of an outline of what your application specifically is going to achieve.
Certainly. Again, Jeff Miter, Valued Engineering. I'm the civil engineer and the surveyor on the project. The project that is before you, one of the other speakers actually very eloquently put it. This parcel is basically a square right now, and all the other parcels that are in this neighborhood are basically rectangular shape and approximately 50 some odd feet wide. The proposal that's before you basically is to subdivide the lots, so this becomes 2 single-family residential lots that will look concentric with the rest of the neighborhood. That is the only thing that is being pushed before the Planning Commission this evening, is to create basically lots that look similar to the rest of the neighborhood. So.
Thank you. Further questions for the applicant?
Is there plans to build a second home?
There is plans that are going forward with a single-family residential. I believe it's a 2-story single-family residential lot that's going to be on the front portion with some garages and other appurtenant facilities towards the rear.
How about parking? Can you tell me a little bit about parking?
The city actually required in the planning application or planning documentation that we proceeded forward with that there would be off-street parking required for any of the tenants that are in the building or any of the owners that are in the building. So there are no street parking items that are designated specifically for this parcel. It has a garage on property. It even has I think it's a tenant, like a visitor space on property specifically that's going to be representative for the project.
How many tenants do you anticipate?
I believe the answer to that question is 2 total.
2 for a 2-story?
There is a 2-story, and then there is a second tenant that would be in an ADU, essentially.
And what's the cap for tenants?
Sorry, my apologies. Let me retract that. There's 3 total tenants that would be, and forgive me, the question you're asking again?
What's the cap for tenants? Is there a cap?
I don't believe that, well, from the standpoint of cap meaning dwelling individuals allowed?
Yes.
Well, it would be a single-family residential home. It would be an ADU facility and a junior ADU facility. Again, all that has parking on the property, including, again, one specific visitor space that's designated for just the use of that property. So it is not an apartment complex that is going in there.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Commissioner Alexander?
When I went on site and spoke to neighbors, they were curious about what the build would look like. We understand it's a subdivision, but what it does is it offers the capacity to increase the number of cars that need to be parked. The structure in front being a 2-story is unusual. As you drive down the street, most of them are single-family homes. There's a couple that have additions onto them. The second structure that would be on the new parcel, if it were to be subdivided, is not a garage like the existing one is. It would be another ADU, or would it be a garage?
There is, on the parcel 2, it would be, again, a 2-story single-family residential structure that would be towards the front portion. Then there is a garage facility behind that that's designated for the single-family residential. Then there is the ADU facility that would be behind that that has its own garage as well. And again, a secondary visitor space behind that as well.
Okay, and the ADU, Ms. Clutter, is it 700, 500 square feet ADUs?
There's actually, so there's a state exemption of the law, so we allow up to 800 square feet, but the state exemption allows it, I'm sorry, I think we allow up to 850 square feet. So it will be larger than 700 square feet if they wanted to.
Okay, and when I was on site, I believe I spoke to the owner. Hi, good evening. And he was describing what was to answer the questions of the neighbors who were wondering what it would look like. The 2-story is not for owner occupied, from what I understand, sir. So it's going to be, you will be living on site? Will there be units that are rented above you, or would there be anyone in the 2-story house will rooms be rented out, which means another car, another parking issue? Did you want to come up and speak?
Yeah, you're welcome to come up as long as you introduce yourself and state your address.
Thank you, sir.
Of residence.
I just thought since we already had a conversation, we could share that, please.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, community, hello. I understand this is an awkward situation to me. I know we all live on the same street, but we haven't met, so. Yes, there's gonna be a front story home, 2-story, which I plan to move my family into. We live currently at the location shown on the left, parcel 1 in the front. I'm sure you've seen us out there trick-or-treating and stuff like that, so. And behind that, covered, will be the garages as spoken with the ADUs behind, with the parking covered. I understand, I have the same problem. I don't complain about my neighbors parking in front of my house. I mean, I understand the cones, I feel you, I get angry too when I see the cones there, but that's not the issue we're here to address. Well, we're here to, hopefully, my father and I, to help you guys feel comfortable at the fact that all we're trying to do here is to build a nice home for my family to move into, and then a nice family to move where I currently live now, and a nice family to live behind. With parking covered, we're not here to rent, to raise up rents. We're here to all live in a community that we've all lived here for. I've lived here 35 years, almost my whole life. We're not here to do something bad. And if there's any questions after this meeting, you are more than welcome to knock on my door. Someone that's loving will attend to you. So please, just, I promise you, and as this process goes forward, and I hope that I'm obviously here to hope yes, but I also understand your no's, and I want you guys to be sure that no matter what the vote is today, no matter what it is, it's not going to change the way that we're trying to upbuild the community of Corona. We see what's going on with downtown, right? They're fixing it. They're going to put some nicer areas there. It's not going to look as bad as it looks now. And that's what we're trying to do too, is just build a quality home and provide a fair price for families that want to grow in Corona as well. Like I said, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your vote.
I wanted to also say thank you, sir, for coming in. It's important that when you're bringing a project forward that you represent and that you're here. So thank you for that, and also for your engineer. The questions that come up is because I know it's just a subdivision of a lot, but it builds the capacity for a building, yet there is nothing before us tonight because that's not part of it. So naturally, there's going to be questions.
I understand.
I did feel more comforted after we briefly spoke about parking on site would be self-sufficient, not street parking. There was literally, I felt awkward parking in the street because I was taking the only spot that was left. It is public parking, and it is what it is. That's all I had. Thank you for coming in.
If I may, I'm sorry, just one more thing. I think it's only fair that the community got to speak and then we got to speak. If anyone has questions, I think right now would be the time, and we settle, develop a relationship here. We're on the same street, we live together. If anyone has questions, I honestly invite you, come back up here and let's work together to figure this out so we can get started on the right path and not wait until it's all done to have to come back to City Hall and provide a complaint. So
Actually, what the appropriate path at this point would be, if there are questions after our convening on this item, you're welcome to have discussions outside of the dais for that. We will continue with the process now.
I understand, my apologies. I wasn't aware of the process, my apologies.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you, though.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I didn't have any other questions for the subdivision portion.
I wanted to comment, I know a lot of the comments from the public were about density, were about all of the changes in the housing programs within the state of California, within the city of Corona. And I can tell you that this commission has spent the last 2 years learning and weighing in on those items. And I know it can be very confusing because it remains to be very challenging for us. However, that said, this as a parcel map is very different than a request for a zoning change. And in this neighborhood, this is a low-density zone, which has tied to it strict limitations on what can be built, even within a new parcel map, should it be approved here. And a process to make a change to that would be a lengthy public comment process. Furthermore, the commission, when we met, I guess 60 days ago now, this zone was actually removed from the density overlay within the city of Corona because of the concerns about density in this neighborhood. So I know one of the questions I had, and now just, I guess in my comment, is that in order, if this were to be approved as a parcel map change, in order for this site to be converted into anything other than low density would be a lengthy application process to achieve that. And with this lot size, maybe we can have a weigh-in from staff. With this kind of lot size, it would be near impossible to even change and move into a medium density facility, I would believe. Could you maybe weigh in on that?
Yeah, so this is already an R2 zone. And is this?
That's what happens when the power goes out before a meeting.
Does this, oh, great. So this property is already zoned R2, which does allow for duplexes as well as fourplexes. So you're correct, they are not changing the zoning. But what the resident has described by building a single-family home and then adding the accessory dwelling units, it's pretty consistent of what you can do in a single-family residential property today. So even when you're zoned R1, you can have up to 3 dwelling units on your property just because of the accessory dwelling unit law. So they are building within their capacity. Yes, the size of the land is going to dictate how many units you are going to get. So they are well within that. So in this particular case, it's about, based on 11,000 square feet, you're about 3.9 dwellings. So he's showing about 3 dwelling units. So it's consistent with the current zoning.
Thank you for that. Any further comments?
I do have a question for Ms. Coletta. Were we to not approve this and the parcel is kept as one large parcel, what's the potential density of a larger parcel like that?
So we can actually look at the entire parcel. You're probably looking, if this one already allows for 3.9, you would just double that in size because parcel 1 is already the same area, about 11,000 square feet.
So it would be potentially about eight dwellings.
Yeah, you're looking about 7 probably.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, understood. Thank you.
Any other further questions? I'll move to close public comment, if not of the applicant. All right, so I'm going to close public comment, and we'll bring it back to the commission for any final comments or motion.
I'll jump in here. I drove Beverly, and I appreciate the neighbors who came out and spoke to me. It is a very narrow street. It's all cars lining the street all the way down from Fullerton all the way down to Rimpaw. However, that said, this very well represents every other lot on that street where it was difficult to see the back of each of the narrow lots because of structures. Sometimes the garages were up front, sometimes the primary home was up front. I don't know if you'd call them ADUs, accessory dwelling units per se, but there were other type of structures as you go back on each of the lots, and I drove it several times. So parking is a factor. As was mentioned by the chair, we're always aware of parking when items come before us. I am comforted by the fact that the applicant is going to live on site in front, which means he has to live with his tenants on both parcels. I think that brings me comfort that he's going to want to know those folks who are going to move in and rent from him. And his family's on site. That means a lot to me. As far as the cars that drive fast on your street, I would encourage you to call PD each and every time. They're a resource. They're there for each of us as residents. There's a sergeant in charge of traffic, and maybe you guys can meet together or ask for a meeting, neighborhood watch type meeting in regards to the traffic and the speeders. Single story versus two. I'm not crazy about the idea of a two-story up front because it is the exception to the rule in the neighborhood. I wanted to let you know that that was the first thing that the applicant said to me when I was on site, that he wants to work with his neighbors, and obviously he spoke again tonight about that. I did have questions about it being such a congested area and construction of a primary two-story, a garage, and also ADU. What does that look like? Can it be on site? How do you work within such a very small? Is it going to be a phased-in construction? I guess would be questions. As far as cars that are parked on each of the properties, there's code enforcement that can come out and look and address those issues as neighbors as time moves on, not necessarily inferring that the applicant will have that happen. And thank you for your time for the neighbors. That's all my comments.
Do we have a motion for this item, 38314?
I make a motion to move it forward.
And so we have a motion for approval on that. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Commissioner Sherman. You'd please vote. I vote aye.
I also vote aye.
And that motion passes. Our next public hearing item is for CUP 2022-0005, a conditional use permit application to allow for a nonprofit organization, ABC Hopes, to conduct recreational, social, and educational programs for persons with disabilities in the M2, that's the general manufacturing zone, located 1831 Commerce Street, Suite 103. The applicant is Katie Moore of ABC Hopes Incorporated. Mr. Rafael Torres, our assistant planner, will present this item. Mr. Torres, please proceed.
Thank you, and good evening, Commissioners. The item before you is a conditional use permit to allow ABC Hopes conduct recreational, social, and educational programs for persons with disabilities. ABC Hopes is a local nonprofit organization that offers various activities and programs for persons with disabilities aged of 14 years and above. Excuse me. The subject site is located on a large 26.14 acre property, which has been developed with 2 warehouses at the rear of the property and 3 multi-tenant buildings fronting North Maple Street. The subject building is situated on the easternmost portion of the property and is surrounded by industrial buildings in all directions. The site has vehicular access from 4 existing driveways along North Maple Street. They are shared amongst all tenants within the property. The subject building is expected to mainly utilize driveway 1, which is located at the northern part of the plan there, off of Commerce Street. The property provides 210 surface parking spaces for the 3 multi-tenant buildings, while their warehouse building located at the rear does have their own parking lots that are fenced off from the multi-buildings at the front of North Maple Street. Based on the parking ratios established for the center, for the manufacturing uses, the office uses, and recreational uses, The site requires 172 parking spaces, and the site does provide 210 parking spaces. Therefore, the three multi-tenant buildings would have adequate parking available. The tenant space that ABC Hopes proposes to utilize is approximately 5,017 square foot. It is 5,017 square foot suite that includes a lobby area, offices, restrooms, and an open recreational activity space. ABC Hopes will utilize 2,135 square feet for recreational purposes with improved horse stall floor mats and wood flooring. The shaded portion shown on the screen is the recreational area with the flooring as indicated. The suite also provides 4 doors at the rear for egress purposes. The recreational activities include exercise programs that will provide personal and small group exercise classes, dance classes, and various health and wellness workshops. An after-school program will be provided at the facility, which offers social, educational, and life skill activities. ABC Hope proposes to operate their administrative office from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a maximum capacity of 13 people, which includes the patrons and the staff members. The recreational activities and after-school program will be open from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. That will be Monday through Thursday. The maximum number of staff members and patrons during the administrative hours as indicated is 13, while the maximum number of people during the recreational hours and the after-hours activities will be 36, which would include the 30 patrons and 6 staff members. These are photos of the existing conditions for the subject building and its exterior landscaping. It provides angles from all directions. It is important to note that the recreational activities and after-school programs will be mostly occurring during the center's off-peak hours and will also operate within the building, inside of the building, as nothing of the recreational after hours will be outside of the building. Also, members are either driven to the facility or dropped off at the facility from the parent or their caretakers. To conclude, ABC Hopes is a nonprofit organization that specializes life skills and recreational programs for persons with disabilities, whose mission is to empower them so they can contribute to society in a positive manner. The property is fully improved and the building accommodates for the proposed use. There's adequate vehicle access and circulation on site. There is sufficient parking on site to accommodate the facility and the other businesses during all working hours. Lastly, the proposed project contributes to the general plan goals in promoting a mixture of land uses throughout the city and minimizes the need for travel to surrounding communities for the goods and services. Therefore, CUP 2022-0005 is recommending for your approval tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Torres, thank you for your detailed review of the proposal. Before we move to public comment, we'll start with the commission. Any questions of staff?
So my question, is there construction that is happening along with this CUP application?
There's might be possible or minimal construction for the proposed use inside of the suite. I can have the applicant here, the architect, and also the applicant available, and they can elaborate on that. If you may.
Well, we'll move to public comment. Once we announce public comment, then certainly we can go through any other questions. If there's any other staff questions, I had two. So, Ms. Alexander, if you want to proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. Appreciate your report. I had a question regarding the Zone D for the airport land use compatibility plan, and where you included the grid for Exhibit 7. And just a general question, not jumping too much in here, but it shows 95.38 people per acre, and yet it's restricted at 100. And I'm just curious, just as a process for the city, if it went over the threshold, is that something that, how do you deal with something that goes over a threshold? Not in this case, but if it did, for example. Does that
Yes, of
preclude
course,
the-
yes. So this property is in a compatibility zone under the Airport Land Use Commission, and it's the compatibility zone of D. So D has certain criteria that all proposed uses, if there's a change to the operations, that they would have to adhere to. So there's a threshold for the proposed use, all proposed uses for the property. As you can see that the property is a large property that contains 2 warehouse buildings and 3 multi-tenant buildings. So staff had to provide to calculate all the factors that were provided from the Airport Land Use Commission to make sure we reach that threshold. And the proposed use does reach that threshold.
I saw that in the staff report, but what if it didn't? What if it exceeded the threshold? Does that?
So the airport land use compatibility plan, I think, was adopted sometime in the 90s. So we already had a lot of development in the city that predates that compatibility plan. So there are situations where we would fall under a non-conforming use in the document. So when that happens, we will make reference saying that this is a pre-existing building based on the occupancy, therefore it's non-conforming and can be allowed to continue. So we do that evaluation. It's normally when you're doing a change of occupancy that's really going to intensify the occupancy within the structure itself. But in this case, that is not necessarily the situation. But we have had that in the past. We do have a building that well exceeds the occupancy. It's within Zone D, and we make that non-conforming case for it based on the compatibility plan.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get a better understanding of that, not to imply that it affects the application here. I did want to ask one other question, because also in that, it recommends no children or students. Sorry.
I had the same question. so
Stealing
go
your
ahead.
thunder here. For E, under subsection E, where the staff report talks about the Zone D. So, I mean, technically, the applicant talks about recreation, social, and educational programs. So when I saw in subsection E about schools, it's not necessarily a standard school, but if there is education going on, I was just curious if you could respond to that, Mr. Torres.
Yes, I can have the applicant that's here tonight explain on its operations and answer your question.
Great, we can do that as the chair wants to set up the format later. That was all my question, Chair. Thank you.
Sure. So I just thank you for asking one of my questions. On the CUP itself, I noticed in all the application packet that we have, there's a great write-up about the program and the hope that upon approval, this would grow and continue. So I'm assuming they may want more space in the future. So does the CUP govern strictly to this square footage, or if there was more space available in the center, can they move into that additional space? I'm just curious, what's the realm of the CUP related to the square footage and space?
Yeah, so the item before you is mainly on its operations and as indicated on the square footage for recreational purposes. Should they move forward with either expanding on adjacent units or suites to expand on the recreational portion of it, we would have to come back to, before you on a modification to that conditional use permit. At this time, all the recreational proposals will be contained within the building. Nothing is indicating that any activity will be taking place outside of the building.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to expand on that just a little bit. As a 501c3, as all nonprofits in the city, you want to give them the capacity to raise funds as they need for their programs, et cetera, to help the mission of their statement. The CUP, as it's written, a lot happens off-peak hours for the center. And would the CUP preclude them from doing a fundraiser, for example, on site, where the center of that activity would be in Suite 103, as large as it is? They would still have that capacity to do that, correct?
That is correct, yes. Should anything require for a fundraiser, as you mentioned, to be either in the parking lot or anywhere on the property, we would require as staff a special use permit to be reviewed.
Okay.
I do want to clarify, whatever they do in this building is already going to be limited by the building occupancy. So if ABC Hopes does have a fundraiser, the occupancy is limited based on the class of the building. So if they need a larger venue, then they would likely seek other facilities that can support that occupancy.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And then I'm sort of piggybacking off the chair's question. So as far as I understand it, the conditional use permit here is attached basically to Suite 103. So if they move to a different spot, needed more space, they would then need a new CUP for that other location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right, if there's no further questions of staff, we'll go ahead and open public comment. So now opening public comment. I do have a speaker card from Mr. Finaldi. Are there any other speaker cards?
Yes, Chair, I have a speaker card from Mr. Morgan.
Okay, well, let's start with Mr. Finaldi. You're welcome to come up and, okay. All right, Mr. Morgan.
Good afternoon. I'd like to comment just so as an educator, I could tell you that education comes in many forms. It's not necessarily a classroom setting. You know, people can learn things a lot of different ways. So just being around other people and having feedback, that's educational, especially when you're talking special needs, which I did for a little while. You know, just that interaction in a structured sense is education. So it's not necessarily, you know, it doesn't have to be like a school. You have a recreational program. Here's the rules, and then you take that, you undergo that activity, and then they get feedback. That's a learning environment. So, you know, when they're saying education, I don't have any firsthand knowledge of this, but I suspect, based on the context, that that's more likely what they're referring to, other than, you know, some kind of formal sit down and here's a training and evaluation and all that kind of stuff. So, so my friend Mr. Finaldi, I've been following this process since it started. It's been quite a little process, and I I've made this comment before with different applications that are different but similar applications, that I really wish there was a way to streamline these processes. That I know of, there's no construction that's going on other than maybe putting up some cubicles or, putting up a little inside wall to wall off an office or something like that. Very minor tenant improvements, if even that. And something so, non-impactful in terms of parking, it seems like the staff is more than capable of handling this. And I really wish there was a way to make this less impactful. We don't need a major CUP and a whole public hearing to do something like this. And there's no additional bathrooms, there's no additional impact on the center, there's no additional parking, there's nothing. I mean, there's no more water lines running in. There's just nothing about this that some exercise mats and a couple of desks is going to change anything. So it seems like there's other similar uses in similarly zoned areas that it seems like once you approve some of those and you think that they're compatible, that it seems like that precedent should grease the tracks for the following applicants. I have utmost in faith in Ms. Coletta that she knows, the difference between a good application and a bad application. So anyways, I want to speak in support of this. We need these programs. We need these type of facilities. And so I have my wholehearted support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Finaldi, come on down.
I'm Tony Finaldi. I live at 3215 Tamarisk Lane, Corona. Lived here since I was in junior high school. And I don't know if you guys know much about the program. Maybe you know a lot about it. Some of you do, some of you don't. But I'll speak on a personal level. This has helped our family tremendously. My son Nico, he's right there. There he is. He came up. Say hi. Anyway, he aged out of school. Nico's 24 years old. They'll only keep you till 22. So after that, there's nothing else to do for these kids. They need a program. They need something. ABC Hopes provides, one of his favorite things is actually the fitness classes, but they provide all kinds of activities and things like that. And, as Mr. Morgan was saying, education comes in many different forms. Following instructions, interacting with peers. I mean, these are all things, especially if you have kids on the spectrum, that need to develop, and they have to work hard at it, even into their adult years. Unlike the rest of us, it comes naturally. It doesn't for them. So that's education right there, just on its own. Anyway, so this has been a godsend program for us. I work with SDK Architecture. I'm an architect, and I donated my time to do this. It was very important to our family that they get their own space finally. They've worked for years without their own space. Borrowing, they used to join workout classes at some of the local gyms, things like that. They're doing a fundraiser Saturday at the Marconi Auto Museum. Fantastic fun. It's casino night. We're going to that. Anyway, I also willing to answer whatever questions you guys may have. Katie, right there, will come down if I'm in over my head. So feel free to ask. Thank you.
Sure. Commission, any questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Whitting?
I'll start off and just say I am known of ABC Hopes for a few years now, and am just a huge fan of what they do. And I was really excited to hear that they were trying to find a permanent location here in Corona to be able to operate out of. I know the city council had a discussion, I guess, based on nonprofits and fees that we were charging, and I don't know if there was any resolution to that. But I would like to invite Ms. Moore down to tell the commission a little bit about the history of ABC Hopes, as well as the community members who are here tonight.
It was going to happen. You wrote an amazing 4-page letter. You knew we would talk to you about it.
My name's Katie Moore, and this is my little brother, Christopher. He is the C in ABC, all because Christopher hopes hands offering people empowerment in society. And Chris is my best friend, and I went away to college. I went to New York. I got as far away as possible to just go and finally live my life a little bit. I was doing a lot for Christopher, and I always knew that whatever I did in life, I wanted to do with him or for him. He's done so much for me. He doesn't even know all that he's done for me. And so one of the last years of grad school is in New York, and my dad, calls and says, hey, Chris is really bumming. He's pretty depressed. He's out of high school. What do we do? We don't want to put him in a program and this and that. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I could move back and then Chris can figure something out. Let's do something. And so all your best ideas come sometimes over having a beer. So that's how ABC Hope started. And I moved back and we started with farmers markets, right? My dad's an entrepreneur. He owns his own business. I wasn't really feeling that side of it, but I said, okay, let's go, let's do it. So we worked at a few farmers markets, but my passion is fitness. My passion is health. I know how important it is for our young people that have disabilities to move their bodies and to keep a healthy lifestyle. And so I teamed up with a young man that owned a CrossFit, and he was like, super Ohana, yeah, let's do something. Let's do a class. And so that's where we started. But it was 1 day a week. Who gets healthy in 1 day a week, right? So then I was able to open up another spot at another gym, another day a week. And then it transferred to a gym in Placentia that's still opening and operating classes for us. Then it went down to Vista. And I always knew in my belly, in my gut, that we needed our own spot. We could make so much more of an impact and really change people's lives if they were able to work out more than 1 day a week, right? Finally, we had an opportunity to move into Corona, which is where I wanted to be. That's where most of the families are that we serve. And it's home for me, not home, I don't live here, but it's home. It's comfortable, it's where we are. And I wanted Chris to have me, essentially a glorified hangout place, right? Where he can be comfortable and just be himself, and his buddies can be comfortable and be themselves. So when we moved in here, I loved the place, and I forced my dad and my older brother to move their offices from Orange County out here. And I said, let's do it. Well, why do you need that much space? Because I'm gonna outgrow it one day. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna outgrow it. You're gonna see what we can do now that we're local, now that we have a spot, right? And so we understood that there was a zone issue, but we were willing to put in the effort, and appreciate you, Ms. Coletta, for everything, all the times and all the phone calls and all the sit downs, really explaining it, because I'm not very smart and all that. But you really helped us out, and I hope that you can all respect that ever since day one, I have gone and gotten any permit I've needed for an event. I've even asked for permits, and they say, you don't need one for this, Kate. Okay, cool, that's great. But I ask for my special use permits. I get my alcohol permits. I get any permit that I need for any of the fundraisers that I've had prior, and I will still continue to get those permits because I think that it's an important practice. Moving into this facility, it has become our glorified hangout. We call it the warehouse. We don't spell it like a normal warehouse. It's called Where, W-H-E-R-E house, where you get fit, where you have fun, and where you're free to be. The question about educational came up. No, we're not an accredited school. We don't offer a certificate when you're finished. My older sister is a very accomplished special education teacher in the school district. And, we said, hey, we need to just teach these guys, keep their brains moving. Our brains turn to mush when they don't work, right? As much as fitness and health is important, keeping the minds are stimulated. Like Mr. Finaldi said, at 22, they're just sitting around. Well, now they can come down and they can work on telling time. They can work on their math skills. They can work on their, change and their money skills. But they also do amazing art projects. You guys got to come down and check it out. I love it. I know we're going to outgrow it. We're renting this place. We don't have a long lease with these guys because we're going to seriously outgrow it, okay? And you're going to be blown away. We might have to come back in here for another CP, and that's great, all right? But we are making an incredible impact. Like Nico back here, he only was coming once a week, and now he comes 3 times a week because he's seen the difference. He's seen his confidence rise. Families are coming in and volunteering. It's a community aspect, and I have amazing supporters here. Their children are at program right now, but they took the time instead of hanging out and doing their own thing, they came out to support and show their gratitude for what we've been able to do for their families. And I'm truly grateful for that. I'm truly grateful for the city of Corona. And I really hope that this, just can be in our distant past, that we just get it done. So if you have any questions, fire away, I guess.
Thank you.
The only other question I had was what I had asked Mr. Torres, and this was because there were the conditions of approval. Is there construction that's part of this?
Actually, well, we will, but to be honest with you, I had visioned that my office was going to be in the warehouse and I was going to be watching everyone. Well, it's not. It's in the lobby, okay? I don't even have a wall. Everyone just comes in and sits at my desk, and I can't get anything done, but that's okay because I'm interacting with the families. So as far as construction goes, I don't envision that anymore. Like we said, it might be a little wall, so I have a little privacy, right?
We're probably going to do it with, pony walls, cubicles, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, it becomes very difficult when we start having to deal with fire sprinklers and so forth, especially in the case of this case where we have an underground backflow preventer that needs to be put above ground, and it's probably a $50,000 item. They only have a 3-year lease, so it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, so no, there won't be any physical construction at this time, Matt. Thank you.
So then this is my question, I guess, for staff again, that condition of approval from the building department and saying construction documents need to be submitted, is that just there as just as a standard? It's always in there?
It's if it's applicable.
Use the other mic. Matt, if we were going to make changes or the occupancy had to change from a B to an A, for example, it would definitely have to go in and check all the exiting, everything else. We were able to work it to where it's still a B occupancy, and so it works out fine. We work with Cindy Schmidt real closely on this, and that's the reason.
Yeah, well, I was just wondering if it needed to be in there at all, if there's no construction going, but I understand the answer I was given.
Ms. Collette, I have a question regarding the CUP in thinking of the comments and not wanting to stifle growth and also go through another CUP process. Is there something that we can do to add to the language of this approval that says if there's growth in the same center potential, that they can go through a CUP from an administrative level so that they don't have to go through a protracted amended?
It all depends on where their location is. I mean, if space is not available at this location, I don't know if ABC Hopes would relocate to another site.
But if it were in the same building?
If it's within the same building, usually if they expand beyond their original footprint, it comes back as a modification. So it's not like they're starting from scratch. You modify the permit that you have and you come back before you and we say, hey, here's the modification.
Sure. Could we condition that to be an administrative review versus a full?
I would say no, just because we don't want you to be in conflict with the municipal code based on its wording. So we will have to evaluate that when we get there.
We could highly recommend that it be streamlined.
Just stay on the board, buddy, and you'll be fine.
Well, we're just trying to limit the
I know,
amount
I know,
of time that you and your team have to spend.
What happens is we'll have to review all the parking counts all over again and everything else. And Craig, I see where you're going. Exactly.
It should just happen almost.
Yeah,
I mean, we want it to be safe and follow code and number of occupants and all of those components, but it should be something that can be moved rapidly. That was my comment.
I just wanted to apologize if my comments were leaning towards doubts for this, not at all. It was just for better understanding with things that come before us that are unique and different paragraphs. I am familiar with Christopher, ABC Hopes.
Hi.
Hi, Christopher.
My birthday is October 30, 1992. Me 30.
Awesome. Mine's September. We're going to have a party.
Yes, it's fun. Thanks you say to ABC Hope. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to say I can see your hands on this, and it's going to be a signature place in the city. Instead of you guys going to other places because we don't have something, they're going to be coming to you because your reputation is going to precede you, and I wish you all the luck.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the commission for any final remarks and for a motion on this item.
I motion to approve CUP 2022-0005.
I second that motion.
Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Meza. And with that, please vote.
It's up for you.
I vote aye.
I vote aye. And the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Our next item. Our next item is public hearing item SPA 2022-0008, a specific plan amendment to the Dos Lagos specific plan to amend sign regulations under section 4.3.6 of the Dos Lagos specific plan for existing freeway-oriented pylon signs and monument signs for commercial centers 20 acres in size or larger. The applicant is Bravo Whiskey Properties, great name, LLC, and Dos Lagos Squared LLC. Ms. Rocio Lopez, our assistant planner, will present the item. Welcome, Ms. Lopez.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission, staff, and audience. The item before us tonight is a request, as the Chair mentioned, for a specific plan amendment, number 2022-0008, for the shops at Dos Lagos, located at 2780 Cabot Drive. The application before you tonight is a request by the applicant to amend the sign regulations at Dos Lagos for the specific plan, and it is a proposed text amendment for existing signage, freeway-oriented as well as monument signs. There are no other changes proposed at this time, and the property is located within the commercial or entertainment commercial zone. Southerly to the site is a commercial zone, and to the north is BP Business Park. The property also has a commercial land use. This is kind of just a brief snapshot of what's being proposed. There are currently, to the left of which is the blue area, is the existing code allowance. To the right is what the applicant's proposing to change. For the existing pylon signs, and I apologize, that should say quantity 3. The specific plan currently allows up to 3 pylon signs, freeway-oriented, and the proposal will continue to keep the 3. So the changes are essentially highlighted in yellow. So the applicant currently has an EMC allowance. EMC stands for Electronic Message Center. They currently have an allowance of 300 square feet for their 3 pylon signs. Currently, what's out there is 2 existing pylon signs. So they're not increasing the number of pylon signs, but they do want to modify the current EMC from 300 square feet to 672 square feet. The specific plan also allows up to 8 freeway-oriented monument signs, and they currently have 7 freeway-oriented pylon signs, so that's not changing. What is proposed is a square footage increase from 175 square feet of sign area up to 225 square feet of sign area. What's also being proposed is currently they have up to 3 tenant panels on the monument signs along the freeway. They want to change it by adding an additional tenant space, so from 3 to 4. And for the monument signs, let's see here. at the driveways. Okay, so this is along the Temescal Canyon Road. There are 4 existing monument signs, and they propose to keep the existing 4, but they want to change the square footage from 135 square feet to 175 square feet. Also, they want to change the height from a current 6.6 to a maximum 10 feet in height. Here's the view of the locational map. The project site is relatively a large center. I think everybody in this room, in the Southern California, at least in the Inland Empire area, knows where Dos Lagos is for the most part. It's located east of the 15 freeway and west of Temescal Canyon Road. It's also located north of Dos Lagos Drive and essentially south of Lakeshore Drive, although Dos Lagos continues north of that as well. Here's a view of the proposed sign locations, or the existing sign locations. This is a site plan. So the numbers are a little difficult to read, but it is shown on your packet under Exhibit 6. Again, along the freeway, there are 7 existing monument signs that are going to remain at their current location. The only changes are that the applicant is proposing an additional tenant panel, as well as a slight increase in sign area. Currently, as mentioned previously, the code allows up to 175 square feet, so the applicant wants to go up to 225 square feet to accommodate that additional tenant panel. There are also 2 freeway-oriented pylon signs. And it's listed as FP1, which is that very northern round green area, and freeway pylon 2, which is, I think it's the 4th round circle on the lower part of the screen. Along the northern portion of the screen is Temescal Canyon Road, and there are 4 existing monument signs. There is one, oops, I'm not sure what happened. I didn't touch anything. I think we lost the screen over there, but the public can, well, there it's, okay, there it goes, it's back. I apologize. So along Lakeshore Drive, there is an existing monument sign that's actually located right in the center of Lakeshore, Lakeside, is it Lakes? I'm sorry. Let me see here. Lakeside, I apologize. Lakeside Drive. It's located actually in the center of Lakeside Drive. At the intersection of Temescal Canyon Road. There are 2 other monument signs located on each side of Cabot Drive, and there is a 4th monument sign located at the south entrance of the Dos Lagos Center. So this is an image along the 15 freeway looking at the existing signage. As we can see, these are the current monument signs that are located along the freeway. And these are the 2 pylon signs that are currently located along the freeway as well. The existing signs are within the Dos Lagos property, so it's outside of the Caltrans right-of-way. And to the left, as we can see, the Dos Lagos specific plan currently allows up to 300 square feet of an electronic message center sign. So the northern pylon sign currently has an EMC that's on both sides of the sign, and the southern pylon sign currently does not have EMC signage. They're existing static signs. The purpose of the applicant's application is that there has been a recent change of ownership at Dos Lagos, and the current property owner understands the importance of keeping current with other regional shopping centers. And so there's also the challenge that the Dos Lagos site is currently located approximately 55 feet below freeway grade. So that's another challenge that the current owner, and as well as the former owner, have had with this particular center. So once again, the top left view is existing Dos Lagos signage. It is currently slightly over 4 feet in height. And to the right center of the screen is the proposed EMC sign. So the EMC sign, the benefit of having the EMC sign is that the applicant will be able to advertise all the tenants that are at the Dos Lagos site. Currently, the sign is static and it only advertises the name of the center. So it's not giving a lot of benefit to those tenants that are there. Oh, and one quick thing to note, the bottom detailed sign, essentially the EMC is really going to only be 6.5 feet high or tall, and the actual architectural component is proposed at 9 feet 2 inches in height. So it's not much of a difference in terms of the existing sign area that's there now. This particular sign is one of the Cabot entrance signs. So along Cabot Drive, there are actually two signs. So it's one on each side of the drive aisle. And so again, it's taking an existing static sign that only advertises the current business name or the shopping center name to an EMC sign, which will allow for advertisement of the actual tenants on site, as well as the shopping center name. And then the last monument sign, this is monument sign number 4, so same scenario here. And this is the freeway monument with added tenant space. So the 7 existing freeway-oriented monument signs will have this additional tenant panel. And then the northern freeway pylon, there's a before and an after image. So as you could see, the image to the left, the before image, the signs are pretty weathered. They're static signs that don't allow for any competitive edge with other regional shopping centers. And what the applicant intends to do is, in addition to advertising the existing tenants that are at the Dos Lagos site, they also intend to advertise community events that are occurring at the center. And this is a southern freeway-oriented pylon sign. So again, the before image is static signs, pretty outdated, and the after is a digital image. Something to note as well is that even though the applicant is there it is. I'm back. We're back. Okay. So even though the application or the text amendment is for signage up to 672 square feet, the applicant is only proposing 660 square feet of that to be EMC. In your packet as well, there is a lighting study that was required that the applicant provide to staff. And so in the industry, there is a 0.3 candle threshold. And what that means is anything above that is essentially potential to cause a nuisance in the area under industry guidelines. So the threshold is this 0.3 candles. And for signs that are up to 300 square feet, such as the monument signs, there is a 150-foot limitation where any signage or any candles within that 150 feet have to fall below the 0.3 candles. In this particular case, it is well below the 0.3 candles, as the commission can see in their staff report. The 0.3 is actually within that first blue line, which is almost at the center of Temescal Canyon Road. So it does meet the candle thresholds of the lighting industry, which is the ISA and the OAAA. And again, this is the signs along Cabot Drive. Again, the green area represents a 150-foot limitation, and the line before that, which is identifying that 100-foot, it is at a 0.3 at that 100-foot and less than the 100 feet. So it is certainly well below the threshold for the industry. And the same goes with the freeway-oriented pylon signs. So the freeway-oriented pylon signs, because it's a larger sign area, the industry allows up to 680 square feet to be within a 250-foot limitation. And so, as you can see from the 250-foot mark on the screen, it's the green area. There is, the threshold is actually less than 250 feet. So it is probably right around the 100 to 200-foot marker, and it is within the industry limitations. So the southern South Freeway pylon sign, same goes for that. The 0.3 candles is well within or well below the 250-foot mark, and so there is no significant impacts at all, whether it's to traffic or to any, I mean, there's really no residential right in that 200-foot area. It's actually much further out. And in looking at the analysis for this particular amendment, again, the main purpose that the property owner of Dos Lagos is seeking this amendment is to keep current with other establishments, such as the other regional shopping centers, Victoria Gardens, a couple of regional shopping centers in South Orange County, and so forth. The amendment proposes to promote exposure, again, to the tenants because the site is well below the freeway grade at approximately 55 feet. And then the shopping center tenants are also set back from Temesco Canyon Road. There are several interior tenants in that shopping center that are not visible from Temesco Canyon Road. We were just out there yesterday getting my daughter some soccer shoes at the soccer warehouse, and we had a hard time finding it from Temesco Canyon Road because there was no advertisement. Even off the 15 freeway, I don't even think there's, they haven't updated the sign. So the sign, from a personal point of view, it's very warranted. It's also consistent with the general plan economic development goals, which is to promote and reinvest in declining shopping centers. The project's text amendment is consistent with the lighting study thresholds as identified in the exhibit in your packet. And finally, it is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, since it is a text amendment modifying existing structures that are out at the Dos Lagos site. As a result, staff is making a favorable recommendation that the Planning and Housing Commission find the project exempted from CEQA and recommend approval of specific plan amendment 2022-0008 to the City Council based on the findings contained in the staff report and the conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation tonight. Thank you.
Ms. Lopez, thank you for your detailed report. So before we move to public comment, commissions, any questions for staff? No?
I have a question or two here for Ms. Lopez. I appreciate the report. It was great, very informative. The Exhibit 6 particularly, which had the different signs and the size, the dimensions, the before and after, that was very helpful to be able to visualize everything that was in the report. So I thank you for that. So the one thing I didn't pick up until your presentation was that they're currently allowed 3 pylon signs along the freeway, but there's only 2 of them. And then only one of the 2 has the electronic sign. But are both of them approved for electronics, or I guess all 3 technically, but what can you tell us about that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, correct. That's a great question. So the way the code is currently written in the specific plan sign regulations is that they're not proposing a 3rd sign, but currently the 2 existing signs, even though the southern one is static, there's no electronic message center, if the applicant wanted to come in and essentially modify it as is, they could pull a building permit to put up a 300 square foot electronic message center site, double-sided at this point in time.
Great, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Question following on the EMCs. Are there, within our municipal code, are there limitations on the ad content of those EMCs? So for example, are they restricted solely to advertising the tenants of the center? That would be the first question. And can that space be sold for advertisement? The questions kind of center around, I want to make sure this doesn't become a billboard that can be sold. So I wanted to understand what our code regulates the content of that EMC to be.
If you look at Exhibit 5 in your packet, Chair, under the last page, there's 4 pages, and this would be the proposed text amendment. So under item A, which is this is a freeway-oriented signs. The pylons, and I'll just read what the current code states. The pylon signs shall be limited to a maximum, currently it states 7, and the applicant wants to change that to 11 static tenant spaces on each sign. An electronic sign display is allowed on the freeway and shall not exceed 672 square feet. The idea is that they will only be allowed to advertise the tenants there, as well as community events.
Yeah, events specifically related, like our example here within the center itself.
Yeah, so our ordinance, we currently have a municipal code, and you are not allowed to advertise off-site businesses. Off-premise identification is prohibited. The only way it is allowed is when we have a billboard that has a billboard relocation agreement with the city. So all of our shopping centers are limited to only the tenants on their property, and then any special events that they have at their property can also be advertised. But yes, it is limited and they cannot sell their space.
And that applies for any EMC, whether it's a pylon or a monument.
Absolutely.
Okay. The other question I had, I didn't see in here in the packet where it said that it would absolutely be done. I saw in the code there's a reference to may. And so as part of this approval, the existing pylon signs that are faded beyond just the panels, is there a complete upgrade occurring to those existing signs?
Let me see if I can go back to that.
Yeah, if you go back.
image. Sure. You know, I think, it'd be nice if we did get a Portos because they're showing it, right? So
Would be nice.
that'd be great. But at any rate, it's my understanding, and of course, these are the images that come from their sign There, seems to come and go. Sorry about that. So it's my understanding that they will be replacing not just installing the new EMC sign, but also replacing the portion of the shopping center signage. So it's essentially all coming down, and it's all going to be new.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank you for the report. Very good, Ms. Lopez. Could you go back to where you're showing Temescal Canyon on the illumination of the levels of brightness?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
I think it's the... I'm not so much concerned there. Thank you. Actually, it's one more. See, okay. And I believe over there, if I'm not mistaken, is there building across the street? I'm not sure. So for this one here, could you address whether those signs have dimming? Because the buildings that are north, south, not so much, but those that are actually facing the center and that sign would face their windows. I guess my concern is after business hours, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, they don't need to be as full bright as when traffic is heavy, when advertising would be at its optimum.
Yes, That is correct. Commissioner Alexander, that is correct. So they will be equipped with the auto dimming technology, and that is identified in their in your Exhibit 9 packet, which is their lighting study. And it does indicate that there will be this automatic brightness adjustment. So it's based on a software photo cell using the technology that automatically adjusts brightness based on the longitude and latitude location of the sign, as well as based on daily sunrise and sunset. And it's the hardware, I'm kind of just paraphrasing from the study. A hardware photocell will automatically adjust a sign's brightness relative to changes in ambient light levels. And so that is correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? All right, we'll move to public comment on this item. Opening public comment. Ms. Capilla, do we have any written comment cards or speakers for this item?
Yes, Chair, we
He's
have a
walking
speaker card
down
from
now.
Mr. Morgan, yes.
Okay. Mr. Morgan.
Good afternoon. You have found something even at least peripherally in my wheelhouse. To address your question directly, no, the photocell will not dim it later on. It has nothing to do with you. Your question wasn't having to do with the ambient light or the latitude and longitude of the sun or the angle. It was whether after business hours, during more quiet times, if it would be dimmed. It does not sound like it will be, at least from the answer that I heard. I'm concerned that the mention, is like, well, we got to keep up with the Joneses, the other shopping centers are doing it, so we have to keep up with it. Well, so are we going to then do the same thing and have a bunch of EMCs for the crossings? Are they going to have to then keep up with those logos? Is this going to be the city that we want to build? Because I can tell you, when they put in the last EMC for the center, it's very jarring when you come down the 15 freeway and it's relatively dark and then bam, right at eye level, and that sign seems to be nowhere near as large as these two signs that are proposed now, or at least the one large sign. It's going to be in your face. It's going to be very large in your face. If you want to know how big these signs are, you can look at the 700-foot taco sign at the former Miguel's. That's arguably an off-site sales at this point. Or the Honda Cars of Corona sign, or I'm sorry, Spreen Honda of Corona now. Both of those were ridiculously oversized at the time. This will be a similar size sign, only it will be almost directly at your eye level at the freeway. I would say that if they got a Portos, they're not going to need a gigantic sign to bring people into the center. I don't really have much of a problem with some low-key lighted signs along Temescal Canyon, because their signs are pretty much invisible of the way they are. Their current signs along the freeway aren't anything but invisible. They seem to be poorly kept, but I don't know that you need to blow everybody's eyeballs out on the freeway with changeable message signs to promote the center. I mean, the center is going to have good quality tenants and good quality activities. I could tell you, I mean, just literally blowing everybody's face off on the 15 freeway is not a good way to bring in business. Bringing in good tenants is a good way to do it. So, I was funny to hear that Victoria Gardens in there, because it's nowhere near the freeway. I mean, so this is below the freeway. It's near the freeway. It has directly freeway visible signs. Victoria Gardens that I know of is not really close to it. It's actually set back. And I go there, a lot of people go there because of the tenants. It's not because of the signs. I couldn't tell you what any of their signs even look like. They have good stuff there, and there's lots of stuff to do there, so we go there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Thank you.
No, Chair.
All right. And we'll bring it back to the commission. We're closing public comment. Back to the commission for further comment. Or motion.
Sorry, Chair. Jumping in here. First of all, I wanted to say this has a familiar ring to it in that when the crossings were opened up, I brought up, you even need more signs along Temescal Canyon. You didn't have enough with tenant signs. Are you sure you don't want another one here? Another one may not have been the illuminated ones, but just for more exposure. I mean, we're a city where we support our businesses, especially after the pandemic. We want them to do well, and it's just not for local folks. Yeah, as far as that business in particular, I think the council member speak might have had something to do that. Slip that baby in there. But I think we absolutely support our businesses. We have economic development. We have a director for the first time specifically to move us in that direction. I think the owners of Dos Lagos the new owners are a breath of fresh air. The activity they're bringing in, the proposed restaurants and et cetera, it's the community is embracing those changes. I think it's exciting what they're doing, and I support whatever monument signs they need. My only concern is possibly a condition on Temescal Canyon for the light level for those. Driving down, you're just going down to crossings or further on to Dos Lagos, and those signs just blend right in. So anything to bring up some more tenant information and advertising, I'm for it. Thank you.
Yeah, my one comment is if I look at the graphics, and what always comes to mind when I drive by this sign is how in disrepair it is. And I always wonder, is the current tenant that's listed there still there? And I almost see this as the progression of technology. The days of printed signs and static signs have gone. You can go in Kohl's and your sales sign that's on the product is a digital sign. It's not even a paper sign. So for me to see something that, one, bringing the center a lot of life and making it more visible and making sure that it's always current, I think is important. I do hear you, Commissioner Alexander, on the brightness. And it just seems to me like, do you really need a sign on at 3 in the morning that's on a city street off a main highway? And maybe that's a matter that should be addressed in just an evaluation of our municipal code, signage codes, which we've had before us in years past, and I even think we talked about the brightness level after hours, and I don't know where that went. So that might be something that separately we look at. But I personally think this is a great improvement to updating the center. Those are my comments.
Thank you for this. I was thrilled when I saw it on the agenda. It's on my neck of the woods, and every time I pass by there, I said, this is false advertisement. We don't have a lot of those stores. And so it's really exciting to keep it relevant. And not only that, but by bringing in the electronic signs, it's efficient. You have, you're going to have new tenants. You can change it on real time. And I think it's good that people know that Dos Lagos is there, and there's a lot of commuters that are going to Temecula, going to different places that don't know, and it's a little hidden gem. So I'm for it. I'm excited. Thank you.
For me, the proposal has definitely some really strong points and a couple things that I'm very hesitant about. So. The idea of the signs along Temescal Canyon, I think they're great. The proposal, the current signs, you really don't even see them. They don't give you any information. They just say Dos Lagos. Well, we already know it's Dos Lagos. So I really do like the new Temescal Monument signs. I don't know if we could attach a time to turn them off at night, 11 o'clock or something. And I was wondering about the noticing. Were the houses, the apartments, the condos right across the street or at Dos Lagos, were people noticed about this hearing?
sorry. Yes, they were. 500-foot radius. And so, yeah, I was, no phone calls received, no emails.
Okay. And so yeah, I really do like the monument signs, and the pylon signs along the freeway are kind of interesting to me. And I know there was a comment that maybe they're not kept up, and so I did drive by them, and it looked like maybe the new owners have updated. I didn't really see like those faded blue panels that are in the photos, so maybe that has been addressed there. There might have been one I saw, but I agree. I'm kind of concerned about, because when I did get up to the crossings, they still have their pylon sign for Toys R Us and Babies R Us, which has been gone for 10 years or so. So it's kind of interesting, just considering all the different aspects that go into running a shopping center like that. But the idea of this as a regional shopping center, especially comparing it to Victoria Gardens, I mean, this is nothing like, to me, it's nothing like Victoria Gardens. This type of services and the retailers at Victoria Gardens, totally on another scale. So I don't really see this as being a peer shopping center as Victoria Gardens. I do think the Crossings is probably the closest that I would think of, at least in the immediate area. And so, yeah, I do kind of worry about the idea that everybody's going to, come back to us for more. With the Dos Lagos already does have the 300-foot electronic sign, which I think is very noticeable and useful. And I was kind of surprised to hear that they are only doing it, that they are allowed to do it on both, but they have not. But then finally, I do think a 660 square foot one would be overwhelming. I think it would be, distracting to drivers potentially, and I don't know that. I think it would be an eyesore, as many of our electronic billboards around town definitely are when they're that close to the freeway. So. What I'm leaning to would be, approving the monument signs along Temescal. I don't mind the expansion of the pylons to have the fourth tenant, but the idea of having a 660 square foot video board, I don't think I'm quite there. I don't see the benefit. I think no amount of signs are going to make retail what it once was. And Dos Lagos does have a lot of empty units right now, and I was thrilled to see that the old Citrus City Grill is going to have a new place coming in. That's an Orange County place that does great stuff. I know there's a new sushi restaurant coming to replace the old sushi restaurant. So those are definitely positive things. But there is a lot of vacant space, and I think that there's going to need to be a lot of rethinking, not just them, but the Crossings too. The Crossings has had a lot of empty spaces for a long time. So I don't think there's any amount of signs we can do that will save any sort of retail operation from what it's destined to be on its own. So they just need great management, and it sounds like we have a new owner that wants to be a good manager, a good steward. The signs they have now, the 300 square foot sign is actually, I think, ahead of other similar shopping centers around town. Adding more to that right now seems like we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. That's my opinion on it.
Well, I can see some of your thoughts regarding size, and I wanted to ask Ms. Coletta if this is the largest that's ever been approved on freeway, whether it's 91 or 15. Keep in mind, yes, retail is in another direction for another day. But I think one of the more noticeable things about Dos Lagos is the events they're having, regular events, and the signs would bring folks in for the events, and therefore visual in proximity to stores also is a good way to advertise. So I guess my question, Ms. Coletta, would be the size.
Yeah, I don't have an inventory, but we do have rather large pylon signs along the freeway. But in terms of the electronic message center, for a single center, this is probably the largest. I think others have been about 500 or 400, but this is quite larger. But this property also has a larger frontage than other commercial properties. So in looking at it in terms of scale, we also took that into consideration. And when the new owners came and met with us last year, I could tell you there were 3 proposals, and staff recommended that they bring it down to the smaller one and be more aligned with what we have in terms of our billboard size. So they did do that, but I could tell you they were actually pushing for almost 850 square feet. So they did work with staff to get this down to more of a compromise and more of a manageable level.
Mr. Woody, I hear what you're saying on the size of the sign, but I'll go back to the existing sign is a total of today 712 square feet, static and non-static. And the new proposal takes it to 718. So although it is a bigger electronic sign, in total size, it's an increase of 6 feet. And my only concern is that it's not used incorrectly, which to me correctly would be to advertise events in the center and specifically advertise the tenants in the center so that everyone knows what's down there, because you can't see what's down there. And so for me, yeah, if they were coming with an application to double the size of the sign, I would have concerns. I mean, I had concerns back when the Cajalco sign package came before us. And frankly, in terms of square footage, I mean, it's a larger parcel, but I would have to think that they probably have double this amount of signage that this property has, even with this proposed increase. So again, I hear what you're saying, but I do think this is where things are moving to. I would much rather see an electronic sign that's accurate and current and exciting than signage that's faded, out of date, and not with the time. So my comments.
And I do want to make a comment on the glare. When we do get new electronic signs, generally the first week we will hear about the complaints because the sign contractor does not adjust the brightness. So we have to call that property owner and say, you need to get out there and do the dimmers. And we've always had a good response. So if that happens, if they forget to dim it in the evening, we will definitely make contact with them to make sure that it has that automatic changeover. It happens in that first 1 week honeymoon period, but we do get it corrected, and it's easy to correct because it is electronic.
A question I was thinking about what Mr. Woody said. Since this does immediately affront a residential area, is it time for us to pursue and maybe even conditioning this approval that there are off hours for residential electronic signage?
We don't impose that. We have never told someone to turn off their electronic message board, so that is not something we've evaluated. I think the brightness is going to be key. These are monument signs, they're not pylon signs, so I do think there is a different level there in terms of visibility because they're not sitting up there. But again, if we do get issues about brightness, we can definitely talk to them about dimming it. This conversation did come up when we were doing the Ganal lumber pylon sign back when the new apartments went in front of it, and Ganal said, hey, we need better signage. They face residential apartments, and we have never gotten a complaint about their sign in the evening hours, and that was one of staff's concerns, and so far to date, it's worked well.
Since you mentioned the Ganal sign, was the sign there before the apartments were built, or, I mean, what was the timetable
It
on
was
that?
simultaneously.
Yeah. I don't know. Is anyone on the commission the idea of having the shut off? What do people think of that?
I'm leaning towards conditioning the dimming if the residents who are enduring this glare, if they feel it's too much and they've contacted staff and they've turned it down and it's still not enough, then I think we could put some teeth into it and say condition to turn it down, whatever that level acceptable is. I'm not sure. They live there. But as far as turning it off, I think it goes to us interfering with their ability to see their investment, full fruition here. I don't want to interfere with their ability to advertise an event or I'm not awake at that hour, but if there is, then they're allowed to advertise. If we give them the right to put a sign there, then they're allowed to advertise. I don't believe in turning it off, but turning it down. That's kind of where I'm at.
Makes me think of Las Vegas signs, New York, Times Square. They're on 24 hours. And if you evaluate it on an as-needed basis, I'm good with that too.
Maybe the condition is a commissioning step. So in large equipment, when you commission a large air conditioning system, you have to verify that the system is worked as designed and drawn in the drawings, architectural engineering. And I don't see in our conditions of approval where it says that the sign has to be commissioned and shown that it's meeting the requirements of dimming and the 0.03 foot candles or whatever the calculation is. And maybe that's a method here. And I personally don't think that this really should apply to where it interfaces in a residential area. So specifically, the monument signs that are on Temescal, I think there's room to look for some requirement there. I don't think that the pylon sign or the monument sign that faces the 15 should have those same requirements.
We do require automatic dimmers in the evening along the 15. Our billboards go down to automatic dimmers because it's still a brightness issue for travelers. So you still want it to work with the sunset hours, so it's not overwhelming. So the sign will automatically dim at sunset, and then it'll change a feature when it comes to sunlight. So we do require that now with our other signs along the freeway.
And can they override that and manually lower it further?
It's my understanding, yes, they can. We have never had an issue with the electronic signs because you do have that manual ability. And if I'm wrong, okay, so the applicant is nodding yes, they have that ability to do that.
Okay, great. I'm comforted by that. Thank you.
Do we have a motion on this item or a proposal?
I move that we accept the monument changes and the locations and the numbers as specified with the condition of all of them have to have dimmers, as it's consistent with all the other signage.
So they would all have dimmers.
Correct.
So we can add a condition that in the evening hours, you want the signs to be dimmed, and we can work with them on that if there's any ever
Or
complaints.
just those on residential facing.
Okay.
I don't care about
And
that.
how do we confirm that?
I don't know.
It's going to be it'll be word of mouth. Like it always is. It's exactly what it'll be.
Would you be willing to add some sort of requirement that upon activation that there's a follow-up reading that it actually is meeting those requirements? I hate for the public to be the one that has to pick up the phone and make the call, because typically the public doesn't do that. They just live with it. And I just want to make sure that if they're required to be at a certain foot candle, that it actually is running there before someone has to complain.
I would be open to condition it that I give it 30 days, give it 2 weeks, 14 to 30 days. Staff go out and contact either mailings or however they seek to make contact with those where it's facing the buildings
I wouldn't put it on the city. My comment would be that it would be on the tenant to.
I believe the applicant, the contractor would like to speak to that, and I think it'd be good if we can hear from him.
Thank you.
Sure, if you want.
Good evening. Yeah, I'd like to speak on that because we have full control of that dimming ability, so we can take it down even lower than what you're seeing on those graphs, so that we can take it down to a level where it's not even noticeable. It's down to 0. So yeah, I was just speaking with my client, and absolutely, if the signs are offensive, they do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. So we don't want a sign out there that's glaring or having some issues with somebody looking at it. It's perceived negative. So we want a positive experience with those signs, and that's what our goal is. So when your concerns about having the brightness, absolutely, it's my concern as well. So we can adjust it if anybody says anything, or we feel that, and I've been doing this job for 30 years. So there's nothing more offensive for me is to see a sign that's not operating correctly. So just to let you know, in addition to that, if the photocell would ever fail, it automatically reverts back to those GPS coordinates, so it automatically dims itself, just in case. So some of the other cheaper signs that are made out there, they don't have that capability, and they don't have the photocells that are that sensitive. So we would definitely be interested in making sure that the sign is not offensive and it does its job, because this is a great tool for the center.
And can you talk about what outreach you can take, or whether, I know on some construction sites, if you see dust, here's a phone name, here's a phone number, just for the first.
I wouldn't be opposed to that. If you see dust or if you see glare, let us know, and I'll be more than happy to provide my number so we can adjust it on the fly. That's how quick it can be done.
Great, thank you.
What is the normal brightness in the evening hours? Do you know that? What do you normally carry a sign at?
Well, here's what you need to kind of know. In terms of the sign, it's overcoming the brightness during the day, so it's at 100%. When it's at night, it's at less than 10%.
Okay.
So you kind of, and then the kind of comparison I want you to think about is if you see Dos Lagos sign lit up, let's say that Dos Lagos sign was, that blue part was lit up with a face, that's exactly what you're going to be seeing on the digital part. It just happens to be, it's digital and changeable. The brightness level is not going to be any different than what you see on a normal sign face. That's where that light level is at.
The only interesting comment is, I'm going to go back to, it becomes a negative. We have seen signs, and they were named here by one of our public speakers.
Yep.
And those specific companies are having negative feedback because of their signs being so big and bright.
Oh, absolutely.
And your responsiveness to, again, I don't want the public to have to be complaining.
No, I don't want them either. In fact, I'm proactive on all my signs. I've been doing this, like I said, for 30 years, and I've got all my signs in this area, in the Southern California area, and none of them do any of that because the manufacturers that I represent are the best in the business. They're not cheap. They're expensive, and you get what you pay for. So these type of signs, they look good, the consistency of color, the light levels, the way they do it, and we have professional programmers that are programming these signs, and it just becomes such a great tool. You're taking that center to a new place, and you know as well as I know, especially on the freeway, you don't even know what's down in there. It's a hole. And the calling card of the business face is the sign. So right now we've got this static looking sign. They're all generic. You've got a blue background with a white face. How boring is that? If you don't have the ability to put like the colors of like TGI Fridays, or you have Trader Joe's or any of the events. Now, one of the things that's happening at this thing that you guys have been seeing is that all these concerts are going on. So that's the need for the second sign, is because it's so effective that we need to pretty much dedicate one sign to just the events. I mean, they're that popular. And by doing that, we pull in people out of the area, get them off the freeway. We actually bring them into the center, which would have never came in there before. So, I mean, with Barrett and his partner and this project, it's amazing. They're taking it to definitely a new level, and I think it's going to be a great gem for the city.
And when does Portos come?
Okay, so that's a good point. We were talking about no off-premise advertising. Well, Barrett asked me, he goes, I'm meeting with Portos, and they have a freeway sign as well. If you know, up in West Covina, that's how they advertise what's going on there. So he said, can you get this made up? And I said, yeah, let me talk to the artist and let's see what we can do. But the reason why you see a lot of tenants coming into this place is because Barrett is showing them what we're going to take the center to do, and we're going to take it to another level. So all of that, he's using those tools to bring those people in because they know those signs are going to be effective. Without them, you're not going to know. It takes massive amount of advertising dollars to make sure that they're represented on that freeway, and that's really expensive. And you've got the front door market sitting there with all the passers going by up and down that 15 freeway that now are going to know that they got X, Y, and Z there to shop. So I think it's really going to be great.
And I'm curious. So I didn't hear your name. Are you Mr. Seltzer?
Yes, I am Mr. Seltzer.
Okay. Yeah, I really do. I saw the exhibit about the watchfire signs, and I thought that was really informative, very well done between, I don't know if that was you or the staff who did it, but that was helpful with the brightness and explaining all that in a way that we could all understand. I guess here's one thing I guess I would like to know about the signs, both the pylon signs, the electronic ones, the static ones. So the businesses that are on there, because there's obviously a lot more tenants than there are names that can be put on those signs, even if we were expanding them as this proposal does. How do tenants pay extra for that promotion?
I would like to have Barrett, one of the owners, come up and answer that question if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
I am going to open public comment because we were at a point of moving to a motion, and I want to follow decorum here that if he's going to come up, we'll open public comment. You're welcome to come up.
Hi, Barrett Woods, the owner of Dos Lagos. My partner and I, Scott, purchased it about 15 months ago, and quickly it disgusts me to see how ugly those signs look and some of those names that are still up there now. But I just didn't want to do it twice and get up there and spend the money and do it again. But the one thing, it's not just about the shopping center, about the tenants that these signs are. The entertainment is huge for that center. It's zone entertainment, the 50 acres, the 2 lakes. We essentially are running a private park there. I mean, usually a lake like that would be owned by the city, and so we're paying the expenses on it, and so we really got to have these electronic monuments for the entertainment. I don't know if you've come out to the tree lighting that we have, or last weekend we had the chili cook-off. We've got Easter egg hunt that's coming in here. We do a lot of free events to the city, and they become beneficial to the tenants. So with these concerts, I mean, we have Jamie Kennedy coming out next month for a comedy show. We've got 3 other big name comedians coming out, and they're going to be doing comedy shows at the lake. But along that side, we've got so many other future entertainment that's going to go in there. It's different than retail has become a lot of entertainment, and I think it really benefits the city. And you were asking what's going to be on there. Sorry, I'm going along. But I think what it'll be, let's say last weekend we would have advertised that the chili cook-off was coming this weekend, or we would have said that we have a free St. Patrick's Day event to the public. Or on Sunday, we had a free talent show that we let the kids do a talent show there for free on Sunday. So all 3 of those would have been up there on the board, and it would have been huge if we could have sold out those and done a little bit better if we had the board up there on the freeway. 2 of them would have been a lot better. So I think that is also, but as far as tenants go, we have so many tenants that benefit from us, like we have an artist tenant there that needs to advertise a lot on there. They love to have events there on a week, every Thursday to show the event they're having, or the children's iPlayology or the trampoline park that's coming in 6 months. And just we have a lot of tenants that really do benefit from this. And so I think them being able to advertise up there as well would be just fantastic. And so let me know if you guys have any questions for me.
I appreciate you coming here tonight. Commissioner Alexander mentioned earlier to a previous applicant that the fact that somebody shows up and is willing to be here definitely is positive. I don't think we hold it against them when they don't come, but it probably sways us a little bit in your favor when people do show up. So I appreciate you doing that. And I'm just curious, are you and your partner local here? Are you in Southern California or?
I live in Orange.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know that local owners are trying to improve that shopping center. It definitely needs better owners than it has had. So it looks like you're on the right track. So I appreciate what you're doing.
My office is at the center. I'm there every day if you ever want to come by. Also, the Portos wasn't supposed to put in this. I'm going to get killed for this.
We
It
might
should
have
not
to
been out there.
condition
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, we got to put that as an example or exit off.
Sorry about that.
Hopefully next year it can go on there.
There you go.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you, guys.
All right, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the commission.
I have one thing I just want to ask again. So I am concerned about the size of the sign, and it sounds like the rest of the commission is not as concerned with that. I'm wondering, would the commission be open to approving one of the signs to the larger size at this point, and that way, and not approving the other one, and so we can see what it actually looks like, and then we can have the applicant come back if they, with another application. I don't know for Ms. Coletta how much, of a potential holdup that would be for an applicant to have to come back for another. But that's my concern still.
Yeah, I understand your angst. To me, to go through that matriation of doing that seems a pretty arcane process. I'm looking at the original approval, and the original approval had two signs, one at 712 and one at 652. And although they never used that second sign as an EMC, I think we should make a decision that meets the requirement and have that decision stand for the project. I wouldn't want to come back and have to have the staff, the applicant, the commission go through this again.
I would say if you wanted to make a motion and see if you get a second, then that would be the way to go. If not, then we'll wait for a second motion. Mr. Woody, did you want to make a motion?
No, I'm not going to make a motion.
All right.
It doesn't seem that the rest of the commission's there with me.
All right, I was just suggesting. I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second the motion.
Hold one second. You started with a condition on earlier.
I thought,
do you
correct.
want to move to that condition?
I do want to
added?
move to the condition, Ms. Coletta, as far as the dimming and the notification of who the residents could get a hold of in case it's offensive.
We have a motion. We have a
I second.
We have a second. And Commissioner Meza offered the second. And then please vote.
I vote aye.
Aye. And the motion passes. Okay, moving on. to written communications. Has the Planning and Housing Commission Secretary received any written communication from persons providing information or seeking action by the Planning and Housing Commission?
No, Chair, we have not.
All right, Ms. Coletta, you have a report for us this evening?
I do not, but I do see that Councilmember Casillas showed up this evening, and I think she missed a public comment in the beginning. So if you want to come down and use time, I think she would like to say a few words.
Come on down. Make sure you have your item available.
I didn't submit a speaker card. It's strange to be on this side of things. Now I just wanted to come in and share my deep gratitude for Diana Meza, who is having her last meeting tonight at the Planning and Housing Commission. I just want to thank you for putting your community forward, for dedicating the last 2+ years of service. It's not easy. It's not easy to sit through these long meetings. It's not easy to prepare for them. And I'm just so grateful to you, Diana, for saying yes and for taking on this role. We're very grateful to you. Thank you.
So just briefly, what a great agenda to end to. My heart is full. ABC just touched my heart, and that's why I was quiet, because I thought I was going to lose it a little bit. I do want to express gratitude to my fellow commissioners. I respect your love for our community and commitment to ethics. That's something that I really value. Thank you. And just thank you for making Corona a great place to live and just to be around. I know we're always working to elevate it, and everybody's here for the right reasons, and that I love that. I love being part of that. My deepest thanks to the City of Corona staff as well. Thank you for your professionalism and also for your thoroughness and just showing me the ropes. I know that it's not easy. I mean, in these 3 years, I still feel like there's a whole lot of learning to do, but thank you. Thank you. You're always professional and just know your stuff. And I have I just, believe in you, and there's a whole lot of confidence there. So thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Casillas, for giving me the opportunity to serve and give back to this great community. I'm ready to pass on the baton, but I will still be around rooting for everyone. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other planning commissioner comments or feedback?
I just want to say thanks to Diana. I've sat next to her for the last year plus, and I've definitely learned a lot sitting next to her, and I was very disappointed when she decided to step away, but that's how it goes. And so I wasn't here at the very beginning of the meeting. I was en route, so I'd missed the presentation, but I wanted to say that. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to serve up here with you, and you're going to be missed sorely.
Likewise, I already said what I thought, but I have to say it's been fun. And you can always come back, as long as you live in Corona, you can always reapply and take a break and you get a blue card. Yeah, come for that. There you go. You'd be out there.
I just wanted to chime in and say thank you so much, Diana. You always come forward with your heart. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. That adjourns tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do a group thing.
I get my groove and swagger on, blasting out my favorite song. Let my freaky out, let it show. Let it show. Ain't nothing wrong with confident, loving me, I'm feeling it. Let